one of the criteria in your short film is that you should do a little bit of color correction. And at a very basic level, what that means is you're taking your footage from what I usually call raw. So just this is exactly what the footage looked like. You hit record on the camera, you copied it to your computer, you put it in Premiere. That's what it looks like. That is a raw clip. Now, if you think about apps like Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok, you can apply filters, right? And those filters change the look of things. So that's really what color correction is. So I just want to go over a little bit on how to do color correction. And the first thing we want to do is we're actually going to change the layout of Premiere. And regardless of what version you're using, there'll be it'll all be very similar. I'm going to go up here to where it says editing, and I'm going to change it from editing to color. And it just changes the layout of Windows a little bit. And I can always turn it back by going to editing, but I'm going to keep it on color. And specifically, we're going to use something called the Lumetri Color Panel. And the Lumetri Color Panel is what allows us to actually take a clip like this one and change the look of it. And this is actually an entire industry. You know, there are people whose whole job it is to color correct television and movies. And it gets really, really deep. There is a lot of stuff you can do with it. So we're going to keep it very, very simple. If you really want to go down that rabbit hole, there are these things called Lumetri scopes, and you can right click on them and you can see different types, and you can actually, use those to kind of help you make the ultimate color. We're not going to go down that far. We're basically just going to eyeball it and see what we think looks good. So I'm going to start by doing color correction per clip. So let's just start with this clip right here of Walnut Grove. I'm going to click on it, and there are, in the Lumetri color, there are all these different categories. For the most part, we'll probably just stick with basic correction. And in basic correction, you can adjust things like the temperature, which takes it from blue to orange, right? Or what we call cool to warm. There's a tint, which you probably won't use. This actually applies like an overall color to it, which you might want to do, but it doesn't get used a lot. Saturation is how much color there is, right? So if you take your saturation down to 0, it becomes completely black and white. So sometimes you want to desaturate things a little bit. In the light, this is all about how bright your shot looks. So you can actually adjust the exposure. And if you look, I've got these scopes over here. Let me turn a few of these off here. The main one that you probably want to be using if you are looking at these scopes is this one here. And when you're adjusting something, you never want to squish things. So see at the top how I'm like squishing all that blue and the yellow and stuff? You just don't want to do that. So I'm just going to kind of lower that down. I mean, sometimes it looks cool if it's really, really bright, but you're what's called overexposing that. So I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. You know, contrast, this allows you to spread those colors out a little bit. Some people will look at this, but really most people are just going to look at the actual video itself and decide what looks good. I'm going to tone down my highlights, maybe those shadows. I'm going to darken those a little bit. I felt like the color before was like maybe a little washed out. So you can change the whites a bit. I can push the whites up. And again, look for that squishing. You don't want to squish any of your colors. So I'll push that up a little bit. And then maybe the blacks, I can kind of come down and try not to squish anything. So if I go to my effect controls, there I have Lumetri Color. And this is all the stuff that I've just done. I just adjusted all this basic correction. If I turn that off, that was the before shot. And with Lumetri Color, that is the after. Now, personally, I actually think that looks better. So I've done a nice color correction onto a single clip. And then I can go to the next one and I can do the same thing. Now, one way to start is you can actually hit the auto button. And if you click auto, it will automatically try to clean things up. Okay? Now, if I can still further adjust it. I'm not sure why I've got this little section on there. I think it's trying to isolate the person. But when I click on this, I can now, you can see it's bumped the exposure up a little bit. So if I go back to my effect controls, I can, oh, hold on. I've got an Ultra key on there. Let me get rid of that. There we go. I can see this is what it's kind of done. Now, unfortunately, it's done it just to a portion of it. So there we go. So that affects the whole clip. So I can just kind of go through, and that's usually where I start. I usually start by clicking auto, letting Premiere do its thing, and then manually adjusting it until I think it looks good. Other little things you want to watch for. Make sure the grass always looks like the same green if there's grass in it. Or if there's a wall, make sure the wall always looks the same. So that's the basic idea. And you can see even with that auto, that looks so much better. You know, you can just see it gives a little more color to the background. And then I can further adjust this if I want to kind of get the look and feel that I think is best for my film. Now that's how you do it on a per clip. Okay, so every clip I do manually. The other option you can do, and this is something I sometimes do at the end, is you can go down here into your assets and make something called an adjustment layer. And with an adjustment layer, you just click OK. You can drag that in above. And when you make an adjustment layer, anything you put on that adjustment layer is just going to allow you to make that same effect on every single clip. So for example, on that adjustment layer, if I decided I want my whole video to be black and white, I would just tone down the saturation on the Lumetri color on that adjustment layer. And now the whole thing is black and white. And these clips have been color corrected. So I've color corrected and adjusted these clips, and I've added an adjustment layer. Something that I like to do, it's kind of cool, I think. If you go to the properties of the adjustment layer, you could actually take the crop and crop about, oh, I don't know, maybe 10%, 10 or 11%, not 111, 11, and maybe 11 from the bottom. And because I've done that on the adjustment layer, the whole thing has been adjusted like that. And now you've kind of got more of like a movie look. You know, like movies tend to have that ultra wide screen. So it's a very simple thing. By eliminating some of that, I actually can make it look a little more cinematic. So that's the goal. You're going to go in, you're going to color correct all your stuff, make sure it kind of matches, make sure it looks good. And then if you want, you can add an adjustment layer to it. And then you can do anything you want to that adjustment layer and just play around. I mean, some of you will mess around in here and, you know, you can realize you can add like a bit of a vignette where you kind of darken the edges a little bit like that. And when you're done, you just export that out and you have your finished film, which hopefully has been fixed for audio levels, everything's balanced, you've got your rolling credits, and of course, you have color corrected everything.